Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another webinar hosted by the McNeil Care at Concordia University of Edmonton. We are recording the webinar, so if you prefer to not have your camera on, please feel free to turn it off. And as mentioned, the recording is ongoing. And so we're excited to welcome you to yet another webinar for the Renewable Energy Speaker Series hosted here by the McNeil Center for Applied Renewable Energy, or CARE at CUE. So this speaker series provides us all an opportunity to explore renewable energy solutions, learn about the challenges faced by the sustainable energy sector, and learn about different careers in the renewable energy sector, as well as interact with experts from across Canada and beyond. And so before we begin today's webinar, I would like to acknowledge that Concordia University of Edmonton is located on Indigenous lands and territories now called Treaty 6 territory, and the homeland of the Métis District 9. The North Saskatchewan River has been a significant place for the Blackfoot, Dene, Nakuta Sioux, Cree, Saulteaux, and Métis since time immemorial. We honor and respect the agreements made by our ancestors to live in good relations for as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the river flows. Today's webinar is titled How Semantics Impede Renewables, Renewable Energies, and our speaker is Mr. Bill Eggertson. After working in journalism and with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Bill switched into the correct sector in 1985 as Executive Director of the Solar Energy Society of Canada, after the federal government terminated support for renewable energies. Since then, he has worked with the Canadian Solar Industries Association, Earth Energy Society of Canada, Environment and Climate Change Canada, Canadian Association for Renewable Energies, International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, and the UK Foreign Office on Climate Security, as well as writing for Renewable Energy Focus and SolarAccess.com magazines. In his spare time, he served on a number of energy and environmental advisory groups for the City of Ottawa and IESO in Ontario, as well as trained under Al Gore's Climate Reality Initiative. He was selected as the torchbearer for the 2010 Winter Olympic Games. That's actually the photo that we have, that we used in the flyer to advertise today's webinar. Super cool. He also renovated his former personal residence into the top 20 energy-efficient homes in Canada. He graduated from York University and did his graduate degree at Carleton University. He has been involved with Concordia University of Edmonton in a number of capacities since 2010. That same year, he formed Net Zero Plus Canada to promote some basic concepts in the energy and environmental space, which will be the basis of his presentation today. After Bill's presentation, I will come back and join you to facilitate Q&A. But for now, it's over to you, Bill.
Thank you very much, Carla, and thank you for everybody on this webinar. I'm going to start on the assumption we're all sort of on the same side. We all believe in goodness and renewables and a good, solid, sustainable energy system. If that's true, there are a couple of barriers that we have faced and continue to face even more using the term semantics. And obviously semantics is a very unfortunate downside of language. We have to talk, we have to communicate. It's difficult enough when it's English to another language, but when it's the same language and there are semantics that are impeding the proper understanding and therefore the positive action taken on steps that need to be taken, that is unfortunate. And what I'm hoping today is to get through some of those by focusing on some of the very common problems we've got. And with that, I start off with, why is there semantics? Why is there confusion? A number of reasons. One is inadvertent or accidental. You use the wrong term. The other is tradition or vernacular. I've always used that, so it shall be, even though things change, you still want to use the same thing, the same word. There's a lack of knowledge where people just literally don't know what they're talking about, but social media influencers, they want to get traffic, they want to get highlights, they want to get repeats. they're using the wrong term because of it's convenient. And then the worst part are the conscious or deliberate and obfuscation people, those who use the terms in renewable to advance their goals and their progress, even though they are not actually doing the correct thing. So Lesia, could I ask you to set up the first slide, please? My goal today is basically, I want to overwhelm you. I'm going to go very fast, very superficially. I want to confuse you because that I have found helps people, especially those with a good solid background in renewables, helps you understand what the problems are and come up with workable solutions. So pardon my confusion as we go through this. I will try to do it as quickly as possible and not leave you scarred, but it will leave you thinking, I hope. I'm going to look on overlooked renewables and the major impediments for them. And literally, the bottom line is we all need to speak the same language so that we can all move in the same way. Slide number 2, please. There are a number of areas where confusion is possible. These are just some of them. Primary versus secondary, electricity versus energy. This is a very common one. People who don't understand the difference between electricity, which comes out of the wall sockets, and energy that drives your car and heats your house and whatever. Capacity and output, and that, again, very common that you put in a 100-watt solar panel, assuming you're going to fix all of the problems in your house and run off a 100-watt panel, because you know there are 8,760 hours in a year. So wow, I mean, that's a lot of energy, a lot of electricity I'm going to be generating. Trouble is because you've only got about a 20% maximum solar capacity rate with panels, that works out to 175 kilowatt hours a year that panel will use. So your house will need at least 150 solar panels of that size, plus batteries if you intend to do the very correct thing. Demand and supply, I always throw this in because I love to ask the question, we're in the supply side on renewables. The demand side is something that we don't necessarily deal with. We assume somebody is taking care of demand, and why do we need more? Can we not decrease the energy supply? Our association is promoting the rule of 3C, and I've got this listed at the very final slide where you can go to see what it is, but it's literally the rule of 3C. It's a total complete ripoff from the rule of 3R, and I can explain that later. Centralized versus decentralized, again, everything is great if you're centralized, but if it requires a very large amount of wires to transmit that electricity, primarily electricity across the country, as in the current Newfoundland, Labrador, and Quebec re-signing of their electricity transmission thing, there are issues that people need to understand because they do have impediments for renewables. Dispatchable versus non-dispatchable, a very common one. If you want to become dispatchable, which means you need solar electricity at midnight, you'd better have some lithium batteries. Where are you storing your energy source? And I'm not even going to get into the potentials and kinetics. Those are all very relevant, but not enough time to deal with them. So Lesia, slide number 3, please. When we use the term renewable, it's an adjective frequently. That there are a number of other terms that are used, and alternative and sustainable, these are very common. Many of these all mean the same thing. And I do want to emphasize that green, anything that is green and positive and renewable is better than anything that is anti-green. But be cautious, because there are a number of ways that you can hide something bad by using one of these terms. And we have to be very cautious of when that is used, what the impact is, and how to counter it. In terms of emissions, what do you know the difference between scope 1 and scope 2 and scope 3 emissions? I'm hoping that everybody understands that carbon dioxide is the basic element that we are trying to get rid of. But be aware of the fact that CH4, more commonly known as methane, releases 30 times the global warming coefficient as carbon. If you get into refrigerants, the R404A refrigerant is 4,000 times more powerful than CO2. So if you're going to release a cubic centimeter of CO2 versus a cubic centimeter of a refrigerant, there is a very large difference from the impact on our climate. And if you're talking trees, remember that the average broadleaf deciduous mature tree across Canada sequesters about 40 kilograms of carbon per year. That'll become an interesting datum that we come back to. Let's see, next slide, please. There are quite a few measures that are used in energy. These are some of the common ones. Barrel of oil, quads, a million tons of oil, ton of TNT, quite a few. I'm not even getting into the gallons and liters for gasoline. It should be joule. Canada is a metric country. Many of us, including old farts like myself, we do know how to measure in kilometers. We do know how to weigh in kilograms. I only use Celsius. I don't even know what Fahrenheit means anymore. But joule is something that I find a little bit tricky because it's the force of 1 Newton to move an object 1 meter. So it rolls off the tongue really easy. Next slide, please. The answer should be kilowatt hours. It's not metric, but it does recognize the transition that our society is doing towards electrification in energy. It allows us, if everything is rated in kW or kWh, to compare the various options. And our association promotes the fact that it should be kilowatt with billion or trillion or whatever, not mega, giga, tera, peta, or exa, because a lot of people don't know what those prefixes mean. So if we use kilowatt hour as the basic and simply say it's 1 million kilowatt hours or 1 billion kilowatt hours, and most of my presentation today will be using the term billion kilowatt hours, it's easier, I think, for most people. So next slide. What are renewables? Here are quite a few of the terms that are thrown around whenever we talk about it. There is a source of renewable, there is a technology of renewable, and there is a process of renewable. So I've put in a couple of wingers here that are not actually eligible to be in this list, but I'm not going to get into it. It's just there are quite a few technologies and processes that are renewable fully, slightly, not at all. And most of them are buried here. Next slide, please. Before we talk too much about renewables, we have to understand energy. And these are federal government data from 2022. I should explain, I only use federal government data because I was once testifying before a Senate committee, and one of the senators said, "Your data are wrong, miss. You know, they're blah, blah, blah." And I smiled and said, "Senator, thank you. You are correct. But these are government data. I never use industry data because that could be wrong. It could be unverified. It could be misleading. I only use government data. So if you've got a problem with the data that I am presenting, you've got a problem with your staff." So my theory is I only use government data, and I've learned 2 or 3 times in talking to politicians that not my source, sir, it's somebody else's numbers. But these are the numbers that you do need to understand, that this is the 5 sectors in the Canadian economy. This is secondary energy only. And I'm focusing on residential, which is us. You know, we don't run Stelco Steel, we don't run Air Canada, but we do run our homes. And if you look at that, the focus on residential here is fairly clear that residential uses 406 billion kilowatt hours a year of secondary energy for everything inside our homes. That releases 39 billion kilograms of carbon as a result. If you look at the thermal side, and by thermal I'm talking space heating, water heating, and space cooling, it is roughly 81% of the energy used in your home is for those 3 applications. It's 327 billion kilowatt hours and 34 billion kilograms just from heating your house and heating your water. The 327, for comparison, compares to, so that's all households, apartments, as well as large buildings. The issue here is that if 327 is from homes, what are passenger cars? 96. So heating and cooling our homes uses 3+ times more than all passenger cars use each year, just so that you get a magnitude. Next slide, please, Lesia. Let's take it down by household. And by household, again, I'm talking every designated dwelling unit, whether it's a small 500 square foot apartment or whether it's a large house. Incidentally, I had to find out what the largest residential house in Canada. It's the Peter Grant Mansion in Haileybury. It's 65,000 square feet, and the Mar-a-Lago is only 62.5. So our building in Haileybury is larger than Mar-a-Lago. Just a slight slam there. But of 15 million households in Canada with a total of 2.3 billion cubic meters of space, works out to 1,600 square foot is the average household in Canada. The 5 apps that I mentioned, the space heating, space cooling, water heating, lights, and appliances, consume 26,000 kilowatt hours per year and emit 3,600 kilograms each year of carbon from all applications. Per square foot, that is 16.5 kilowatt hours per year for the electricity, and 2.3 kilograms per year for carbon emissions. If you take the thermals, it was the red line in the previous slide, we consume 81% and 87% of the emissions are due to this. It works out to 13.3 kilowatt hours per year per square foot for energy consumption and 2 kilograms per square foot for carbon emissions as a result of heating our homes. Next slide. So the goal is we want to get to net zero, and therefore all you have to do is get rid of 26,000 kilowatt hours consumption. Obviously, to go net zero, you could get rid of 13, so that you're still using 13, but you're doing production of 13. And also get rid of 3,600 kilograms of carbon. Very simple, I would think. Again, I've put the numbers there for the thermal side. The trick here is you need to verify what you're doing. A lot of people plant a tree, but if a tree is 40 kilograms, you can see that 40 going into that 3,600, you need a fair number of trees on your balcony. Next slide, please, Leslie. So, one option, install a heat pump. You continue to use the 4455 of old kilowatt hours. You will now be using 6,000 of new kilowatt hours, assuming you are minimum efficiency of a coefficient of performance, and you haven't made any changes. So you're now consuming 10,500 kilowatt hours, but you are producing almost 22. So the production consumption ratio for net zero is 2-to-1, which is where our association came up with the term net zero plus, and verified and validated. If you're talking carbon, in the old days, because you're getting rid of the old electricity for the heating, it's zero there, but you still have 426 kilograms from your old lights and appliances. You now have a new 577 because you're using the same electricity and you haven't become any more efficient. You are now emitting 1,000 kilograms, but that compares to 3,600 kilograms in the old one, roughly a 3.3-to-1 ratio. Next slide. The trick here is the term produce. There are a number of terms that are used to explain how the heat, this is the government schematic of a ground source heat pump. There are a number of terms to explain how the heat gets from the ground into my house. It can convert, it can extract, it can transform, it can relocate, it can move. The industry really likes the term transfer, but we promote the concept that this is a production. You've got 7 to 9 electromechanical devices in this house. Makes it very difficult to call that transferring. Literally, if it is straight transfer, therefore the ground source heat pump becomes a primary energy source because it's just transferring. If it's producing, it recognizes the fact that some intervention is necessary in order to get the heat into the house. Next slide. And this is an air source heat pump. I think, whoa, picture got messed up. This is the government schematic of an air source. Slightly less electromechanicals as ground source, but it still shows very clearly that the term should be produce. Next slide. There are no official statistics, but literally, if you do any type of search, you can come up with the conclusion that there are 1 million heat pumps installed currently in Canadian homes, air source and ground source. Assuming it's a low average of 20,000 kilowatt hours of renewable energy, That's 20,000 million or 20 billion kilowatt hours a year of dispatchable, and by dispatchable, it means no batteries are required, of renewable energy is being produced, and 3,000 million or 3 billion kilograms of carbon is being offset. There is no quantification, there is no credit, there is no recognition, there is nothing for these million homes, as opposed to somebody who has a solar panel or wind turbine on their roof. There is no recognition for the people who have done the correct thing. And if you look at the issue here, note that the production is 20 billion kilowatt hours. I checked Statistics Canada for 2025 electricity generation across Canada. This is just reported electricity, so it doesn't include the solar panels that are on some people's homes. But Canada generated 625 billion kilowatt hours that year, of which 343 was hydro, 82 billion was nuclear, 50 billion was wind, and 6 billion was solar. So that means that 20 billion kilowatt hours are being produced right now by heat pumps versus 6 billion kilowatt hours by solar right now. I always like to talk about Parliament Hill. If you're in Ottawa and you ever go to Parliament Hill, they are have installed now 23 kilometers of borehole for a geothermal heating system for Parliament Hill, for both the Senate and the House of Commons. Based on their government data, they should be producing 9 million kilowatt hours of electricity or heat per year and 1.5 million kilograms of carbon offset. There is no signage on Parliament Hill. We have filed an access to information to ask that. Back in December, they got back to us saying, we need 6 months because we have to consult with a large number of parties. To us, it was, let's see, this is the basic starting point of what you're doing. I mean, it's a good thing to do, but you're not taking any credit for it. So it's hiding something that should be bragged about, and they're not doing it. Next slide, please. So there are quite a few benefits of quantifying the thermal production of renewable energy. So you can quantify it, you can validate it, it becomes accountable, transparent. We can stop the growing use of greenwashing that people are doing. Those people who say, I planted a tree in my backyard, therefore I'm net zero. No, you're not. It's totally dispatchable. My last house used 93% of my grid electricity to run my geothermal. So I was producing 93% of my energy in off-peak hours. Recently, the new owner, was paying 2.8 cents a kilowatt hour for off-peak time of use electricity in Ontario. So he was running 93% of his house energy with off-peak 2.8 cents. Lovely. There's no transmission necessary. The pipelines don't need to, with all due respect to Alberta, we don't need the pipelines for heating homes. We can use the pipelines so that we can make plastic or whatever else we need gas for. You still will need some nuclear if you can't figure out how to do it, but you can also have a production thermal credit or a thermal renewable energy credit. I can get into that if anybody cares about it. But next slide. So the semantics that are impeding renewables, we need to keep it clear, we need to be accurate, we need to be understood, and we have to make it actionable. Final slide, please, Lesia. Our association has a number of websites that we're putting up. So these are some of we got a good deal on .help domains. So we have set up a number of sites that try to explain what we are promoting in this webinar. Obviously, this presentation will be available later on, but these are just some of the sites that we've got. So that concludes my presentation. And I guess, Carla, we now ask for questions.